naming of cats is a difficult matter. It isn't just one of your holiday games. You may think at first that I'm mad as a hatter when I tell you a cat must have 3 different names. First of all, there's the name that the family use daily, such as Peter, Augustus, Alonzo, or James, such as Victor, or Jonathan, George, or Bill Bailey, but all of them sensible, everyday names. There are fancier names if you think they sound sweeter, some for the gentlemen and some for the dames, such as Plato, Admetus, Electra, Demeter, but all of them sensible everyday names. But I tell you, a cat needs a name that's particular, a name that's peculiar and more dignified, else how can he keep up his tail perpendicular, or spread out his whiskers, or cherish his pride? Of names of this kind I can give you a quorum, such as Mancustrap, Quaxo, or Coricopat, such as Bombalurina, or else Jellilorum, names that never belong to more than one cat. But above and beyond, there's still one name left over, and that is the name that you never will guess. The name that no human research can discover, but the cat himself knows and will never confess. When you notice a cat in profound meditation, I tell you, the reason is always the same. His mind is engaged in a rapt contemplation of the thought of his name, his ineffable, and ineffable, deep and inscrutable, singular name. Oh, yes. That's it.
I have a Gumby cat in mind. Her name is Jenny Any Dots. The cat is of the tabby kind, with tiger stripes and leopard spots. All day she sits upon the step or on the stairs and on the mat. She sits and sits and sits and sits. And that's what makes a Gumby cat. But when the day's hustle and bustle is done, then the Gumby cat's work is but hardly begun. And with all the families in bed and asleep, she tucks up her skirts to the basement to creep. She's deeply concerned with the ways of the mice. Their behaviour's not good, and their manners not nice. So when she's got them lined up on the matting, she teaches them music, crocheting, and tattoo. I have a Gumby cat in mind. Her name is Jenny Any Dots. Her equal would be hard to find. She likes the warm and sunny spots. All day she sits beside the hearth, on the bed, or on my hat. She sits and sits and sits and sits. And that's what makes a Gumby cat. But when the day's hustle and bustle is done, then the Gumby cat's work is but hardly begun, as she finds the mice will not ever keep quiet. She is sure it is due to irregular diet. And believe it, nothing is done without trying. She sets straight to work with the baking and frying. She makes them a mouse cake of bread and dried peas, and a beautiful fry of lean bacon and cheese. I have a Gumby cat in mind. Her name is Jenny Any Dots. The curtain cord she likes to wind and tie it into sailor knots. All day she sits upon the sill, or anything that's smooth and flat. She sits and sits and sits and sits, and that's what makes a Gumby cat. But when the day's hustle and bustle is done, then the Gumby cat's work is but hardly begun. She thinks the cockroaches just need employment to prevent them from hot and wanton destroyment. So she's formed from that lot of disorderly louts a troop of well-disciplined, helpful Boy Scouts with a purpose in life and a good deed to do. And she's even created a beetle's tattoo. So, for old Gumby cats, let us now give 3 cheers upon whom well-ordered households depend. It appears.
Growl Tiger was a brave old cat. In fact, he was the roughest cat that ever roamed at large. From Gravesend up to Oxford, he pursued his evil aims, rejoicing in his title of the Terror of the Thames. His manner and appearance did not calculate to please. His coat was torn and seedy. It was baggy at the knees. One ear was somewhat missing. No need to tell you why. And he scowled upon a hostile world from one forbidden eye. The cottagers at Rotherhithe knew something of his fame. At Hammersmith and Putney, people shuddered at his name. They would fortify the inn-house and lock up the silly goose. And the rumour ran along the shore, Growl Tigers on the loose. Woe to the weak canary that fluttered from its cage. Woe to the pampered Pekingese that faced Growl Tiger's rage. And woe to the bristly bandicoot that lacks on foreign ships. And woe to any cat with whom Growl Tiger comes to grips. But most, the cats of foreign race, his hatred had been vowed. To cats of foreign name and race, no quarter was allowed. The Persian and the Siamese regarded him with fear, because it was a Siamese that mauled his missing ear. Now, on a peaceful summer night, all nature seemed at play. The tender moon was shining bright, the barge at Molesey lay. All in the balmy moonlight it lay, rocking on the tide, while Growl Tiger was disposed to show his sentimental side. His bucko mate, Grumbuskin, long since had disappeared, for to Bellet Anthony gone with his beard. And his boatswain, Tumble Brutus, he too had stolen away, and robbed behind the lion he was prowling for his prey. In the forepeak of the vessel, Growl Tiger sate alone, concentrating his attention on the lady Griddlebone. And his raffish crew were sleeping in their barrels and their bunks, as the Siamese came creeping, their sampans and their junks. The foul Tiger had no eye or ear for aught but Griddlebone, and the lady seemed enraptured by his manly baritone, disposed to relaxation and awaiting no surprise. But the moonlight shone reflected in 1,000 bright blue eyes. And closer still and closer the sampans circled round. And yet from all the enemy there was not heard a sound. The lovers sang their last duet, in danger of their lives, for the foe was armed with toasting forks and cruel carving knives. Then Gilbert gave the signal to his vast Mongolian hordes. With a frightful burst of fireworks, cheeks they swarmed aboard, abandoning their sampans and their pullaways and junks. They battened down the hatches on the crew within their bunks. Then Griddlebone, she gave a screech, for she was badly scared. I'm sorry to admit it, but she quickly disappeared. She probably escaped with ease. I'm sure she was not drowned. But a serried ring, a flashing steel, growled tiger did surround.
The ruthless foe pressed forward in stop and rank on rank. Crop Tiger, to his vast surprise, was forced to walk the plank. He, 100 victims had driven to that drop at the end of all his crimes, was forced to go kerflip kerflop. Oh, there was joy and whopping when the news flew through the land. At Maidenhead and Henley there was dancing on the Strand. Rats were roasted whole at Brentford and at Victoria Dock. And a day of celebration was commanded in Bangkok.
The Rum-Tum Tugger is a curious cat. If you offer him pheasant, he would rather have grass. If you put him in a house, then he'd much prefer a flat. And if you put him in a flat, then he'd rather have a house. If you set him on a mouse, then he only wants a rat. And if you set him on a rat, then he'd rather chase a mouse. Yes, the Rum-Tum Tugger is a curious cat, and there isn't any call for me to shout it. For he will do as he do, and there's no doing anything about it. The Rum-Tum Tugger is a terrible boy. When you let him in, then he wants to be out. He's always on the wrong side of every door. And as soon as he's at home, then he wants to get about. He likes to sleep in the bureau drawers, but he makes such a fuss if he can't get out. Yes, the Rum-Tum Tugger is a curious cat, and there isn't any use for you to doubt it. He will do as he do, and there's no doing anything about it. The Rum-Tum Tugger is a curious beast. His disobliging ways are a matter of habit. If you offer him fish, then he always wants a feast. When there is no fish, then he won't eat rabbit. If you offer him cream, then he sniffs, sneers, for he only likes what he finds for himself. So, you'll catch him in it right up to his ears if you put it away on the large shelf. The Rum-Tum Tugger is artful and knowing. The Rum-Tum Tugger doesn't care for a cuddle, but he'll leap on your lap in the middle of your sewing. For there's nothing he enjoys like a horrible muddle. Yes, the Rum-Tum Tugger is a curious cat, and there isn't any need for me to spout it, for he will do as he do, and there's no doing anything about it. Balinese cats come out tonight. Balinese cats come one, come all. The Balinese moon is shining bright. Balinese cats come to the Balinese ball. Action. Balinese cats are black and white. Balinese cats are rather small. Balinese cats are merry and bright, and pleasant to hear when they caterwaul. Balinese cats have cheerful faces. Balinese cats have bright black eyes. They like to practice their airs and graces and wait for the Balinese moon to rise. Balinese cats develop slowly. Balinese cats are not too big. Balinese cats are roly-poly, and they know how to dance a gavotte and a jig. until the Balinese moon appears, they make their toilette and take their repose. Bali cats watch behind their ears. Bali cats dry between their toes. Balinese cats are white and black. Balinese cats are of moderate size. Balinese cats jump like jumping jacks. Bali cats have moonlit eyes. They're quiet enough in the morning hours. They're quiet enough in the afternoon, reserving their terpsichorean powers to dance by the light of the Balinese moon. Balinese cats are black and white. Balinese cats, as I said, are small. If it happens to be a stormy night, they'll practice a caper or two in the hall. If it happens the sun is shining bright, you'd say they had nothing to do at all. They're resting and saving themselves to be right for the Balinese moon and the Balinese ball. Balinese cats come out tonight. Balinese cats come one, come all. The Balinese moon is shining bright. Balinese cats come to the Balinese ball.
Mungojerry and Rumpelteazer were a very notorious couple of cats. As knockabout clowns, quick change comedians, tightrope walkers and acrobats, they had an extensive reputation. They made their home in Victoria Grove, and that was merely the centre of their operations, for they were incurably given to rove. They were very well known in Cornwall Gardens, in Launceston Place, and in Kensington Square. They had really a little more reputation than a couple of cats could very well bear. If the area window was found ajar, and the basement looked like a field of war, if a tile or two came loose from the roof, which presently ceased to be waterproof, if the drawers were pulled out on the bedroom chests and you couldn't find one of your winter vests, or after supper one of the girls suddenly missed her Woolworth pearls, then the family would say, "It's that horrible cat, it's Mungojerry," or Rumpelteazer. And most of the time they left it at that. Mungojerry and Rumpelteazer had a very unusual gift of the gab. They were highly efficient cat burglars as well, and remarkably smart at a smash and grab. They made their home in Victoria Grove. They had no regular occupation. They were plausible fellows, and liked to engage a friendly policeman in conversation. When the family gathered for Sunday dinner, with their minds made up that they wouldn't get thinner on Argentine joint, roast potatoes and greens, and the cook would appear from behind the screens and say in a voice that was broken with sorrow, "I'm afraid you must wait and have dinner tomorrow, for the joint has gone from the oven," like that. Then the family would say, "It's that horrible cat. It was Mungojerry," or Rumpelteazer. And most of the time, they left it at that. Mungojerry and Rumpelteazer had a wonderful way of working together. And some of the time you would say it was luck, and some of the time you would say it was weather. They would go through the house like a hurricane, and no sober person could take their oath. Was it Mungojerry or Rumpelteazer? you have sworn that it mightn't be both. And when you heard a dining room smash, or up from the pantry there came a loud crash, or down from the library there came a loud ping, from a vase which was commonly said to be me, then the family would say, now, which was which cat? Oh, it was Mungo Jerry. And Rumpelteazer. And there's nothing at all to be done about that.
Well, of all things, can it be? Really? No. Yes! Oh, hi! Oh, my eye! I've had a few drops, but I can still see that's old Deuteronomy. Old Deuteronomy's lived a long time. He's a cat who's had many lives in succession. He was famous in proverb and famous in rhyme a long while before Queen Victoria's accession. Old Deuteronomy's buried 9 wives and more. I'm tempted to say 99. And his numerous progeny prospers and thrives, and the village is proud of him in his decline. At the side of that placid and bland physiognomy, as he sits in the sun on the vicarage wall, the oldest inhabitant croaks, well, of all things, can it be? Really? No. Yes! Oh, hi! Oh, my eye. My mind may be wandering, but I confess I believe it is old Deuteronomy. Old Deuteronomy sits in the street. He sits on the high street in market day. The bullocks may bellow and the sheep they may bleat, but the dogs and the herdsmen will turn them away, and the cars and the lorries roam over the curb, and the villagers put up a sign, road closed, so that nothing untoward may chance to disturb old Deuteronomy's rest when he feels so disposed, or when he's involved in domestic economy. And the oldest inhabitant croaks, well, of all things, can it be? Really? No. Yes, oh, hi, oh my eye. My sight's unreliable, but I can guess that the cause of the trouble is old Deuteronomy. Old Deuteronomy lies on the floor of the Croc and the Dingo for his afternoon sleep. And when the men say there's just time for one more, the landlady from her back parlour will peep and say, now then, out you go by the back door. Old Deuteronomy mustn't be woken. I'll have the police if there's any uproar, so out they all go without a word spoken. The digestive repose of that feline's gastronomy must never be broken, whatever befall. The oldest inhabitant croaks, well, of all things, can it be? Yes. No. Oh, my eye. My legs may be tottery. I'd better go slow and be careful of old Deuteronomy.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Advanced Feline History, Unit 201. And the topic for today's lecture is of the awful battles of the peaks and the pollicles, together with some account of the participation of the pugs and the poms, and the intervention of the great rumpus cat. The peaks and the pollicles, everyone knows, are proud and implacable, passionate foes. It is always the same wherever one goes. And the pugs and the poms, although people say that they do not like fighting, once in a way they will now and again join into the fray. And they start to bark, 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 bark until you can hear them all over the park. Now, on the occasion of which I shall speak, almost nothing had happened for nearly a week, and that's a long time for a pole or a peak. The big police dog was away from his beat. I don't know the reason why, but most people think he'd slipped into the Wellington Arms for a drink. And no one at all was about on the street when a peak and a pollicle happened to meet. They did not advance or exactly retreat, but they glared at each other, and they scraped their hind feet, and then they started to bark, 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 until you could hear them all over the park. Now, the peak. Although people may say what they please, is no British dog, but a heathen Chinese. And so all the peaks, when they heard the uproar, some came to the window, some came to the door. There were surely a dozen, more likely a score. And together they started to grumble and wheeze in their huffy, snuffy, heathen Chinese. But a terrible day is what pollicles like, because your pollicle dog is a dour Yorkshire type, and his braw Scottish cousins are all snappers and biters and every dog jack of them notable fighters. So they stepped out with their pipers in order, playing "When the Blue Bonnets Come Over the Border." Well then, the pugs and the poms held no longer aloof, but some from the balcony, some from the roof, joined into the din, with a bark, 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 until you could hear them all over the park. Now, when these bold heroes together assembled, the traffic all stopped and the underground trembled. And some of the neighbours were so much afraid that they started to ring up the fire brigade. When suddenly, up from a small basement flat, why, who should stalk out but the great rumpus cat? His eyes were like fireballs, fearfully blazing. He gave a great yawn, and his jaws were amazing. And when he looked out through the bars of the area, you never saw anything fiercer or hairier. And what with the glare of his eyes and his yawning, the peaks and the pollicles quickly took warning. He looked at the sky, and he gave a great leap. And they, every last one of them, scattered like sheep. And so, when the police dog returned to his beat, there wasn't a single one left on the street. Well, your assignments will be found at the bottom of the lecture notes. Good afternoon, everybody, and I will see you next week.
You ought to know Mr. Mistopheles, the original conjuring cat. There can be no doubt about that. Listen to me and don't scoff. All his inventions are of his own bat. There's no such cat in the metropolis. He holds all the patent monopolies for performing surprising illusions and creating eccentric confusions. At prestidigitation and at legerdemain, he'll defy examination and deceive you again. The greatest magicians have something to learn from Mr. Mistopheles' conjuring turns. Presto! And away we go. And we all say, oh, well, I never. Was there ever a cat so clever as magical Mr. Mistopheles? He's quiet and small. He's black from his ears to the tip of his tail. He can creep through the tiniest crack. He can walk on the narrowest rail. He can pick any card from a pack. He's equally cunning with dice. He's always deceiving you into believing he's only hunting for mice. He can do any trick with a cork or a spoon and a bit of fish paste. You may look for a knife or a fork and you think it's merely misplaced. You have seen it, but now it is gone. But next week, you'll find it laying out on the lawn. And we all say, well, I never. Did you ever see a cat so clever as magic Mr. Mistopheles? His manner is vague and aloof. You would think there was nobody shyer. But his voice has been heard on the roof when he was curled up by the fire. And he's sometimes been heard by the fire when he was about on the roof. At least we all heard somebody who purred, which is incontestable proof of his singular magical powers. And not long ago, this phenomenal cat produced 7 kittens right out of her hat. And we all said, oh, well, I never. Did you ever know a cat so clever as the magical Mr. Mistopheles?
Oh, hello, Gus, how are you today, mate? Gus is the cat at the theatre door. His name, as I ought to have mentioned before, is really Asparagus. There's such a fuss to pronounce that we usually call him just Gus. His coat's very shabby, and his thin as a rake, and he suffers from palsy that makes his paws shake. Yet he was, in his youth, quite the smartest of cats, but no longer a terror to mice or to rats, for he isn't the cat that he was in his prime. Though his name was quite famous, he says, it's time. And when he joins his friends at their club, which takes place at the back of the neighbouring pub, he likes to regale them, if someone else pays, with anecdotes drawn from his palmiest days, for he once was a star of the highest degree. He's acted with Irving, he's acted with Tree, and he likes to relate his success on the halls, where the gallery once gave him 7 cat calls. But his greatest creation, as history will tell, was Fire for a Fiddle, the fiend of the fell. Oh,
I have played, so he says, every possible part, and I used to know 70 speeches by heart. I'd extemporise backchat, I knew how to gag, and I knew how to let the cat out of the bag. I knew how to act with my back and my tail. With an hour of rehearsal, I never could fail. I'd a voice that could soften the hardest of hearts. Whether I played the lead or in character parts, I sat by the bedside of poor little Nell. And when the curfew was rung, then I swung on the bell. In the pantomime season, I never fell flat. I once understudied Dick Whittington's cat. But my grandest creation, as history will tell, was Fire for a Fiddle, the Fiend of the Fell. Then if someone will give him a toothful of gin, he'll tell how he once played a part in East Lynne. At Shakespeare performance he once walked on Pat when some actor suggested the need for a cat. He once played a tiger, could do it again, which an Indian colonel pursued down the drain, and he thinks he's still better than most, produced blood-curdling noises to bring on the ghost. He once crossed the stage on a telegraph wire, just to rescue a child when a house was on fire. And he'll say, now, these actors, they do not get trained as we did in the times when Victoria reigned. They never get drilled in a regular troupe. Oh, they think they're clever just to jump through an hoop. And then he'll say, as he scratches himself with his claws, whoa, the theatre is certainly not what it was. These modern productions are all very well, but there's nothing to equal, from what I hear tell, that moment of mystery when I made history as Fire for a Fiddle, the Fiend of the Fell.
McCavity's a mystery cat. He's called the hidden paw. But he is the master criminal who can't defy the law. He's the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair. For when they reach the scene of crime, McCavity's not there. McCavity. There's no one like McCavity. He's broken every human law. He breaks the law of gravity. His powers of levitation would make a fakir stare. And when you reach the scene of crime, McCavity's not there. McCavity's a ginger cat. He's very tall and thin. You'd know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought. His head is highly domed. His coat is dusty from neglect. His whiskers are uncombed. He sways his head from side to side, movements like a snake. And when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake. McCavity. There's no one like McCavity. He's a fiend in feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him in the by-street. You may see him in the square. But when a crime is discovered, the cavity's not there. He's outwardly respectable. They say he cheats at cards. And his footprints are not found in any part of Scotland Yard. And when the larder is looted, or the jewel case is rifled, or when the milk is missing, or another peak's been stifled, or the greenhouse glass is broken and the trellis past repair. Aye, there's the wonder of the thing. The cavity's not there. And when the Foreign Office find the treaty's gone astray, or the Admiralty lose some plans or drawings by the way, there may be a scrap of paper in the hall or on the stair. But it's useless to investigate. The cavity's not there. And when the loss has been disclosed, the Secret Service say, it must have been McCavity. But he's a mile away. You'll be sure to find him resting, licking on his thumbs, or engaged in doing complicated long division sums. McCavity. There's no one like McCavity. There never was a cat of such deceitfulness and suavity. He always has an alibi, and one or two to spare. At whatever time the deed took place, McCavity wasn't there. And they say that all the cats whose wicked deeds are widely known, I might mention Mungo Jerry, I might mention Griddlebone, are nothing more for agents. For the cat who all the time just controls their operations. The Napoleon.
Bastopher Jones, I have some lovely fish here for you. Okay, if you don't want it now, I'll put it down here and you can come and get it later when you're ready, okay? La 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 la, Bastopher. Bastopher Jones is not the skin and the bones. In fact, he's remarkably fat. He doesn't haunt the pubs. He has 8 or 9 clubs. He's the St. James's Street cat. He's the cat that we greet as he walks down the street in his coat of fastidious black. No common place mouses have such well-cut trousers or such an impeccable back. In the whole of St. James, the smartest of names is the name of this Bramel of cats. And we're all of us proud to be nodded or bowed to by Bastopher Jones in white spats. His visits are occasional to the senior educational, and it is against the rules for any one cat to belong both to that and to the joint superior schools. For a similar reason, when the game is in the season, he is found not at foxes but at blimps. He's frequently seen at the gay stage and the screen, which is famous for winkles and shrimps. In the season of venison, he gives his benson to the port hunters' succulent bones. And just before noon's not a moment too soon to drop in for a drink at the drones. If he's seen in a hurry, there's probably curry at the Siamese or at the Glutton. If he looks full of gloom,
Then he's lunched to the tomb on cabbage, rice pudding, and mutton. So much in that way passes past for the day. At one club or another he's found. It can be no surprise that under our eyes he's grown unmistakably round. He's a 25-pounder or else I'm a bounder, and he's putting on weight every day. But he's so well preserved because he's observed all his life routine. So he'll say, and to put it in rhyme, I shall last out my time, is the word of this stoutest of cats. It must, and it shall be spring in Pall Mall, when Buster Jones wears white spats.
There's a whisper down the line at 11:39, when the night mail's ready to depart, saying, Skimble, where is Skimble? Has he gone to hunt the thimble? We must find him, or the train can't start. All the guards, and all the porters, and the station master's daughters, they are searching high and low, saying, Skimble, where is Skimble? For unless he's very nimble, then the night mail just can't go. At 11:42, when the signal's nearly due, and the passengers are frantic to a man, then Skimble will appear, and he'll saunter to the rear. He's been busy in the luggage van. He gives one flash of his glass green eyes, and the signal goes, "Hoo-hoo, all clear!" And we're off at last for the northern parts of the northern hemisphere. You may say that by and large, it is Skimble who's in charge of the sleeping car express. From the driver, to the guard, to the bagman playing cards, he will supervise them all, more or less. Down the corridor he paces, and examines all the faces of the travellers in the first and in the third. He establishes control with a regular patrol, and he'd know at once if anything occurred. He will watch you without winking, and he knows what you are thinking. And it's obvious that he doesn't approve of hilarity and riot. So, the folk are very quiet when Skimble is about and on the move. You can play no pranks with Skimble Shanks. He's a cat who cannot be ignored. So nothing goes wrong on the Northern Mail when Skimble Shanks is on board. Oh, it's very pleasant when you've found your little den with your name written up on the door. And the berth is very neat with a newly folded sheet, and there's not a speck of dust on the floor. There is every sort of light. You can make it dark or bright, and there's a handle that you turn to make a breeze. There's a funny little basin you're supposed to wash your face in, and a crank to shut the window if you sneeze. And then the guard looks in politely and he'll ask you very brightly, do you like your morning tea, weak or strong? But Skimble's just behind him and was ready to remind him, for Skimble won't let anything go wrong. And when you creep into your cosy berth and pull up the counterbane, you ought to reflect that it's very nice to know that you won't be bothered by mice. You can leave all that to the railway cat, the cat of the railway train. In the watches of the night, he's always fresh and bright. Every now and then he has a cup of tea with perhaps a drop of scotch while he's keeping on the watch, only stopping here and there to catch a flea. You were fast asleep at crew, and so you never knew that he was walking up and down the station. You were sleeping all the while he was busy at Carlisle, where he greets the station master with elation. But you saw him at Dumfries, where he speaks to the police, if there's anything they ought to know about. When you get to Gallowgate, there you do not have to wait. Skimble Shanks will help you to get out. He gives you a wave of his long brown tail that says, I'll see you again. He'll meet without fail on the midnight mail, a cat of the railway train. You've heard of several kinds of cat. In my opinion now is that you should need no interpreter to understand their character. Puss, 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 puss. You now have learnt enough to see that cats are much like you and me and other people whom we find possessed of various types of mind. For some are sane and some are mad, and some are good and some are bad, and some are better, some are worse. But all may be described in verse. You've seen them both at work and games and learned about their proper names, their habits and their habitat. But how would you address a cat? So first, your memory I'll jog and say a cat is not a dog. Now, dogs pretend they like to fight. They often bark, more seldom bite, and yet a dog is, on the whole, what you would call a simple soul. Of course, I'm not including peaks and such fantastic canine freaks. The usual dog about the town is much inclined to play the clown, and far from showing too much pride, is frequently undignified. He's very easily taken in. Just chuck him underneath the chin or slap his back or shake his paw, and he will gambol and guffaw. He's such an easy-going lout, he'll answer any hail or shout. Again, I must remind you that a dog's a dog, a cat's a cat. With cats, some say one rule is true. Don't speak till you are spoken to. Myself, I do not hold with that. I say one should address a cat, but always keep in mind that he resents familiarity. I bow, and taking off my hat, address him in this form. Oh, cat. But if it's the cat next door, whom I've often met before, he comes to see me in my flat, I greet him with an "Hoops, a cat." I've heard them call him James, but we've not got so far as names. Before a cat will condescend to treat you as a trusted friend, some little token of esteem is needed, like a dish of cream. And you might now and then supply some caviar or Strasbourg pie, some potted grouse or salmon paste. He's sure to have his personal taste. I know a cat who makes a habit of eating nothing else but rabbit, and when he's finished, licks his paws, so as not to waste the onion sauce. A cat's entitled to expect these evidences of respect, and so, in time, you reach your aim, and finally call him by his name. So, this is this, and that is that, and there's how you address a cat.